Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgment, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We've got 3 great decks for you. My favorite Arishem deck so far. I've won 70% of my games with this. It's won 3 Infinity tickets. The wildest Arishem killer you're going to find absolutely anywhere. And then, well, one really great Mr. Negative deck that can handle both the Arishem meta and the anti-Arishem meta. So we've got 3 great decks for you. We're going to review Gilgamesh. We're going to review Arishem. We've got a great show for you. Before we get started, though, would you like to win Gwenpool? Well, if so, you're going to leave a comment when I tell you to in this video, and as long as you're subscribed, you'll be entered to win Gwenpool. We gave away 5 season passes last week. You can check yesterday's video if you'd like to see if you won, if you're an announced winner. All through this week, every single video, Monday through Friday, will be another Season Pass giveaway in the comments to the video. Got it? I'll tell you what to comment, and as long as you're subbed, and as long as you like the video, you will be entered to win a Season Pass. In addition, please hit that sub button even if you're not interested in that Season Pass. We bring you 7 days a week of Marvel Snap content, 7 days a week of videos with at least 3 decks every single weekday. We get more decks, more content, the best decks to you, the fastest of anyone in the community. Hit that like, hit that comment, watch as long as you can. It does help us out. Deck 1. This deck is brilliant. This is someone named Unity. This is a player in the Asia region who hit number 7 in the world with the Cerebro 3 deck, and this deck is brilliant. It's Cerebro 3 specifically teched to beat Arishem. How do we beat Arishem? Well, Darkhawk and Mystique win lanes, right? Like, if you get Darkhawk and Mystique and you don't have priority, you can get them both out at the end of the game. The opponent, the Arishem opponent, almost certainly, unless they get extraordinarily lucky, cannot beat you. That's what this deck is all about doing. In that Arishem matchup, you've got Darkhawk, you've got Mystique, you've got Invisible Woman and Cosmo to make sure that those cards go off in a way that makes you win the game, and you've got Shang-Chi as a backup along with Iron Man and Mystique for that. And then a lot of the rest of the meta right now is Loki decks. We're seeing Loki decks all over the frickin' place. There's so much Loki in this meta, and you might know this, you might not, but Cerebro 3 has always been one of the best answers for Loki because they get utterly useless cards. All your 3/7s are great, but all they got was a bunch of 3-cost cards that they can't do a ton with, and this list is built to straight up rock those 2 matchups. It's good against your general other stuff too, because Cosmo's powerful, Shang's powerful, and Cerebro just sometimes rolls people. You also have a bit of extra scams with Quake and such, but the real trick is that you've got Arishem in hand and you've got Loki in hand, both not guaranteed wins. Nothing is a guaranteed win in a card game, but extremely high win rates against both of those matchups. All right, you can find Unity at twitter.com/Unity0919 if you'd like to see the decks and the explanation from this player. Jeff can be Ravonna, U.S. Agent, or Baron Mordo. You can also try and fit in Luke Cage, and you need Darkhawk, which means that this is about as cheap as a deck gets to be competing in the top 10 of the Infinite Leaderboard. You need 1 Series 4 card, and you can use a Series 5 card, but it is in no way required. Cool. So, if you missed out on Arishem, you're like, how could I compete? This is what you go for. All right, so turn 1, you bast or past, and you're choosing to bast specifically into Iron Man. Excuse me, let's just be exact. You're choosing to bast specifically if you have 2 of Cerebro, Mystique, Iron Man. Good. If not, you can save bast for a turn 4 extra play. Turn 2, Invisible Woman is generally speaking the card I'd like to play. I want to know if they're going to try and Red Guard in my Invisible Woman pretty quickly. Jeff and Sentinel are both fine. Behind Invisible Woman, if you throw Mystique and then you make your last play on turn 6 Darkhawk, you just play Darkhawk on turn 6, Darkhawk will reveal, winning whatever lane, and then Mystique will reveal, as long as she is the first card played over Invisible Woman, copying that Darkhawk to win the game. Cool? So that's how you handle that matchup, just so you're clear. Cosmo is also great here if the opponent's Arishem, but Cosmo is generally good. Read what your opponent has. Remember that you have Shang-Chi, so be careful with your Cosmo be as careful with your Cosmo as you can be. Cerebro behind Invisible Woman is perfectly fine if you don't have an opponent that is running. If you don't have an opponent that is either that is Arishem, but be careful with just playing Cerebro out because there is a lot of both Red Guardian and Rogue in the meta right now. If you don't have anything else to do on turn 3, any of the turn 2 plays are fine. Sentinel in particular is good because it keeps you a Guardian hands to play. Turn 4, feel free to Shang behind Invisible Woman, but remember that if you're going to try that Darkhawk thing, you need Mystique to be the first card behind Invisible Woman. If you don't have that play, then you just drop 2/2s. A 3 and a 1 is perfectly fine here as well. Like if they played a card or they set up a lane where Cosmo makes sense, or they have only one place where Cosmo would make sense, you can drop Cosmo and Bast here and get everything going. Turn 5, you can Arishem if you have Cosmo out. You can Darkhawk against Arishem if you have Cosmo out, because that's a perfectly safe lane. That lane is now 1. Unless they have Magneto, then Shang-Chi, you're perfectly fine. If not, you can feel free to just drop Iron Man. Turn 6 is Cerebro and Mystique behind Invisible Woman. Mystique behind Invisible Woman. If Arishem and Darkhawk 5, you'd basically want to play Cerebro Mystique almost always at the end of the game in some combination here. And that's how you play this list. It is really simple, really powerful, and very, extremely effective. You have a lot of powerful plays, a lot of ways to win games of Marvel Snap without breaking the bank. This is a completely unique deck. Props to Unity for coming up with such a great list. This should be all over the place for at least the next little bit, because it, again, smashes the 2 most popular decks right now. Hey, if you like Marvel Snap tournaments and are in the New York area, check out July 12th at 6 p.m. at Brookland, LAN. There is a live Marvel Snap tournament. You should check that out. I'll throw the link to that tournament in the description to this video if you want to sign up. If not, hop on the Snap Judgments League Discord and we'll tell you all about it. Our next deck is Stefan's negative list. Stefan is a player in that Woody group. He plays with Woody, with Dubos, with Butt, etc., etc. I think I've covered the different pulls of that group by listing those people, but you get the idea. Husky puppies, so on and so forth. Stefan creates great decks often, and is often overlooked because he's not really a streamer. So this is a really, really cool high power Mr. Negative list that can win a lot of games, largely because, hey, I don't know if you know this, but if Mr. Negative and Jane get played and you get Null and Zola, you usually win that game. Because you also have an Iron Man or Mystique or something, right? That is an easy win. But you also have the Darkhawk Mystique nonsense, which this deck is built around for beating Arishem. This deck is built around having 3 different ways to get Darkhawk and Mystique out on turn 6 without priority. That's wild. All right, Stefan made this. You can check yesterday's video for a Dubos version of the negative list. Which one do I like more? I'm honestly not sure. This version is better against Arishem. The version yesterday from Dubos is better against the meta at large. You should know what you're playing enough to know which one you'd rather play. Null here can be Taskmaster. You lose a bit, but Taskmaster is perfectly fine here. And this deck is all about Darkhawk and Mystique to end the game. This deck saying you can replace Null does not mean you don't need Darkhawk. You do need Darkhawk, you do need Ravonna, and you do need Sage. Good? Sorry about that. There's not another 3-0 that works in the same way Sage does. Alright, so turn 1 you pass. Turn 2, Ravonna or Psylocke if you can get out negative. If you can do that, then you play negative on the next turn. If not, you're perfectly fine playing Ravonna still. And if not, you're passing. If you pass straight into turn 4 and then you turn 4 negative, you're still fine. Negative is better than Ravonna. Sorry, negative is better than Iron Man on turn 4. If you don't have either of those by turn 4, though, you're probably out of the game. Although you still do have a chance against Arishem list if you can get Ravonna out on turn 4. Jane if you have negative, and Sarah if not. If you have Ravonna and no Sarah, Psylocke works too. All you need to win the matchup against Arishem is Darkhawk and Mystique. And if you have a Ravonna out, your Mystique costs 2. That's 7 energy. Darkhawk and Mystique can come out if you just play, if you play Sarah there at all, Sarah will just get them out, or if you go Ravonna into Psylocke. Cool? And obviously, Mr. Negative will help you as well. That beats Arishem. If not, you generally go off. We're looking at things like Iron Man copied by Mystique, Null and Zola, or Null and Zola, or, Shang into Null and Zola. Stuff like that is just backbreaking and game winning in Mr. Negative list. There's a million ways to win if you get the Jane Foster or the Sersi after negative going off. All right, last chance review for Gilgamesh time. So Gilgamesh is a 5/9. He was buffed in the middle of the season from a 5/7. That's why I have a lot of hope, just for the record, in Gwenpool. If you're curious about my thoughts about Gwenpool, check yesterday's video where we did our full new season Gwenpool review. We went over every Spotlight Cache, Gwenpool, and Hydra Bob, so feel free to check that out. Gilgamesh was buffed to a 5/9. He is an on reveal +1 power for each of your other cards in play with increased power. As of right now, he is fundamentally exclusively a zoo card. He is one of the bigger 5s in the game. Even if you get 3 things pumped, you're not super sad to have a 5/12, right? So he's almost always at least good. He's very, very low downside. we've all had to play, if you have Mockingbird, had to play a 5/9 Mockingbird, and very often that's just fine. That doesn't lose you the game. It's still good stats. He is, however, largely a zoo card. Outside of zoo decks, there are other cards you would much rather play, things like Iron Man, things like currently Darkhawk, etc. Cool? So Gilgamesh, if you want zoo, is a must-have card. If you do not have zoo, you do not need to have Gilgamesh. However, huge caveat here. There's this non-zoo strength pump deck that Second Dinner seems to be trying to make. They've seeded it with cards like Sebastian Shaw. They're seeding it again with a card with Gwenpool. Gilgamesh, a lot of season pass cards seem to be going into this archetype. Hell, even Surfer might fit into that archetype, right? Another former season pass card. Given that they keep pushing this archetype, Fastos would be in this archetype. We get the idea, yeah? Given that they keep pushing this archetype, eventually, if they keep releasing cards for it, it's very likely to hit. If this archetype hits, Gilgamesh will be a bust. If you think that they're going to succeed in making that archetype work, you should get Gilgamesh. That's the only real reason you would need it, unless you want to play Zoo, and Zoo is not outside of the meta, right? Like, Zoo, even now, even in the Arishem meta, is still something good, it's still something powerful, it's still something to compete. It's a tier 2 deck, not a tier 1 deck, but it is a relatively cheap way to compete at the highest levels of Marvel Snap, and so Gilgamesh is worth it. Now, finally, should you buy Gilgamesh? Yes. But even if you don't want to play Zoo and you don't believe this Strength Pump deck is happening, you get so many resources, although you've given up a lot of resources in weekend missions, you get so many resources, gold, and so on from buying Gilgamesh that I think it is, generally speaking, completely worth it to just buy the Season Pass card every month. I personally think of Marvel Snap as a subscription model service. I think that you should be spending $10 a month, if that is remotely affordable, in order to play this game. Otherwise, you are forever going to be playing at like the most extreme of disadvantages. If you're just buying the Season Pass, you will mostly be okay. Arishem. I mean, I can't imagine anyone at this point doesn't know what Arishem does. There was a point where he was a 70% play rate. Now he's down to like 48%, wildly low. He's a 7/7 Series 5, 6,000 tokens. At the start of the game, +1 max energy, and shuffle 12 random cards into your deck. Cool. He's a whole archetype. Like, you want him basically no matter where you are. If you're early in the game, you're early in Series 3, you want to get him, and then you want to save up for Darkhawk, Loki, and Blob and various spotlights coming in the next month, because then you have a deck. But you can play Arishem without basically any of those cards. They're all really helpful, right? But you can run extra tech, extra other cards, and still make an Arishem deck, because your odds of seeing any card in a given game are less than 40%. So, like, we're talking a little more than 1 in 3 games that you're seeing most of the cards in the Arishem deck, which means that he's great. You should get him. So if you're if you're in Series 3 still, you should get him. If you're late in the game, you've been playing for a really long time, and Arishem adds a lot of variety to the game, and you should get him. Now, I'm going to say this straight up. A lot of top players have been messaging me. We're talking publicly. Spyro, who's on the podcast this week, has been complaining about it, but numerous players have been complaining about this to me privately, that Arishem is bad for the game. It means you can't read the board, you can't know what to play around, and that's unhealthy for Marvel Snap. Whether that's true or not, I leave it up to the viewer. I actually haven't formed a decision yet. I think we're both Sizer and Spyro on the podcast. Sizer's the current number 2 player. Spyro's a huge content creator on the podcast this week, and it is going to be a topic of discussion, honestly, because I'm trying to form a opinion here that I don't really have yet. I don't know how I feel yet. I'm leaning negative, but I'm not like there. But like, I definitely see the positives, especially for early pool pairs. All right. I think you should get him because no matter where you are in the game, he provides extreme value. Even if you don't really want to play him, just owning him gives you access to a deck. And you never know when you're going to be like, oh no, I just need a deck. I need this thing to play. So that means that I think you should get Arishem. His play rate is insane. A lot of his best decks are still fairly underexplored. We're still learning what the best cards are for him. I took this Arishem deck today I played for a couple hours yesterday. I played from like 3 to 5 yesterday. I was just sitting around the house. I realized my daily missions had turned over, and I was like, I'm going to play for a couple hours. During that time, some of you may know I'm a teacher, the IB chairperson called, and we went over the IB English scores, which came out the same day. And I lost like a bunch of ranks, and then when I went back and got off the phone, I was still half distracted, and I fell from rank like 520 to rank like 1,100. I grabbed this deck today, and this Arishem deck that we're going to talk about next, and I climbed back to rank 800. I got 300 ranks with this in no time. And it should have been higher. I lost 2 games where I just thought my opponent was going to make this really clever play, and they made a really simple play, and I played level 2 snap and lost 8 cubes. 4-4 in that way. So again, Arishem's play rate is insane. He's a must-buy card. He's really fun, and this is the Arishem deck that I would be going with right now. This is Snap Orange's deck. Snap Orange is a Chinese Marvel Snap player, one of the only ones in the West we know of. So he is one of, like, just a phenomenal deck builder and player. He got 3 Infinity Borders with this, and I carried a 70% win rate in climbing back into the top 1,000 with this list. This list has amazing Snap equity. Nick Fury giving you extra key cards is amazing. I'm more and more convinced that this is the ultimate Nick Fury deck. I thought Nick Fury was a terrible card. Well, he was, and then Arishem came out, and now suddenly he's a really good card. You have Darkhawk for the Mirror, a card that you can safely ignore otherwise. You've got Leech to stop any bullshit that's going to get in your way. Things like opposing blobs. Your opponents are setting up for powerful plays. Legion can scam wins. Coulson just gives you key cards. I beat Dubos, who's sitting around rank 15, by playing he's playing the negative deck from yesterday. Coulson gave me a Silver Samurai, and I dropped that Silver Samurai onto Kamartaj, discarding his Iron Man and Mystique, and then I managed to steal the end of the game by playing a Stegron in the mid, knocking a card to the right, which won me the middle and got me 4 cubes. Like the things Coulson does in this deck are absolutely mean. I'm going to tell you straight up, Rogue is probably overrated in this list. I might want Rogue to be a different 3. It is the only card in my client that did not feel like it was winning me games. Everything else here felt amazing. Against Darkhawk players, getting that Darkhawk out to end the game is huge. Getting Blob out is amazing. Mockingbird for super cheap is great. Legion is just free win sometimes. That same Dubos game, I was trying to end up, like, my goal to win that game was to Legion the Squirrel location, Central Park, and Zakara came up and pulled Legion, and then he got a bunch of Zakars, but it was the right location, so it didn't pull anything else, and I had to win a fair game of Snap. Disgusting. But that same game, he got like a 30 power Darkhawk pulled by the same Zakar, like, so I had to play around. Like, this just deck is wildly fun and wildly effective. Snap before Leech if you know what your opponent's doing. Feel free to win that way. If they're going to Loki you, right, and you know they're going to Loki you and they have priority, you let them Loki you, then you Leech, you take out their whole hand. The only thing in their hand that's really scary for you at that point is Darkhawk. I've lost a couple of games to, I know what Shang-Chi variant I use, right? I've lost a couple of games to turn 5 Loki into turn 6 top deck Shang-Chi after a Leech, and like, okay, you got me, right? Like, you top deck the exact right card at the exact right time, fine, you're going to lose. That's Marvel Snap. Welcome to not winning 100% of your games, but this deck is so strong. All right, so Loki and Blob are needed. You can replace Darkhawk, I think, with Enchantress and be fine. In fact, I'm not sure if Rogue doesn't want to be Enchantress, just as an extra way to take out Darkhawk. I know that doesn't work against Blob, but I don't really care. I'm perfectly fine just saying Darkhawk is my actual threat, and I'm willing to play a fairer game against Blobs. Legion and Mockingbird can be Vision and Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus is very good in this matchup because, well, it tends to pull a lot of their big stuff in one spot, and if you pulled the opponent Darkhawk, Blob, and Mystique in one spot, then you win the game, right? And you can do that on turn 4 before opponents can really do too much. Vision is just a really good card. Moving 8 power makes it really hard for the opponent to make decisions. All right, so this got 3 Infinity Boards in 4 tries, and I, again, have a 70% win rate in about 15 games with this. Turn by turns are wild, so I'm just going to talk about the cards that are in the deck. Turn 1, Quinjet, and turn 2, Quinjet is more or less equal to Coulson. If you need more cards to play Coulson. If you have cards that you want to be cheaper because you want to play them early, Quinjet. Turn 3, Loki, if your hand is mid. I will, at this point, I think Nick Fury over Lokiing, especially if Quinjet is out, but I am at a point where I would generally prefer to Nick Fury over Lokiing, but Loki is still phenomenal, one of the best cards in Marvel Snap. And, like, I've often, if I don't have Quinjet and Coulson, just pass Loki and let that be my play. Turn 4, Loki's still an option. You can also play Mockingbird with other cards, which is just wild. Remember, you have 5 energy, and Mockingbird often costs 2 or 3. Or you can do Legion or Leech for a scam. If you know your opponent's playing a bunch of ongoing, if you can censor Shang-Chi and Enchantress, yada yada, then you Leech. And if you've got a great location, then Legion is awesome. Turn 5, Blob, Darkhawk, or 4. And then turn 5, Shang or Rogue, or Shang and Rogue or the earlier plays. That's one of the reasons Rogue came in over Enchantress so many of these lists, because you can Shang and Rogue to end the game. I'm still not sure that's right, though. Right, this list is so good and so powerful, and you should definitely check it out. This is the Arishem list I think I am most comfortable with. It's got the most plays and the most options of any that I've played. I'm very happy to see Coulson and Fury finally good, and Legion and Leech as the double scam is just really a nightmare for opponents. So please do check this really strong, very cool deck out. Hey, if you'd like to see gameplay from these, please check out the stream team. The stream team is a number of our friends, almost all from Power On Gaming. Check out Power On Gaming. Props to our friend Super Tech God. Power On Gaming friends who have who stream these decks today, at 12 p.m. Eastern. Gregor2424 will be streaming these very decks. If you'd like to see yesterday's decks, check out the King of Canada. There will be a YouTube video from the King of Canada today and Gregor tomorrow. Get the idea. Cool. All right, questions of the day, and then we're out. We got a lot of questions of the day, so buckle up. Whack-a-mole is asking about the Snap Judgments Alliance, and I guess since we know alliances are coming at the end of the month, I think I'm gonna have to open alliances are seemingly either 25 or 30 people. I've got over 50 $10 patrons, right? So I think we're just gonna open Snap Judgments League Alliance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna probably have our friends like Gunny and Models, our mods, run the first few of these. If we end up needing more, please shoot me a line if you would be interested in both being in the Snap Judgments League Alliance and the Snap Judgments Alliance, and if you'd be willing to help run a section of the Snap Judgments Alliance. Thank you. All right, Caretix Lee has 3 questions. That's why he's the king of questions. So, lower series card. What lower series card would see more play if it was released high series? Beast was the example that Caretix gave, and Beast is the obvious one. Beast is one of the best cards in Marvel Snap, and it's often not treated as such. It's treated as an afterthought. If you're not good with Beast, it is worth getting good with. It wins so many matchups, just in silly ways. Bouncing a oh my god, the name of the card is now gone. Bouncing a Widow's Kiss is amazing, and that's even just so often you get these little extra values. Enchantress very rarely sees play. It pops out of the meta all the time. It is very often forgotten, largely because it hits your own cards as well as your opponents. But if they released Enchantress in a higher series, everyone would be going crazy about that card. It would be considered OP. Bishop is phenomenal. We've got 10 million. The name of the card is now gone. I'm so old. We've got 10 million Ravona and Mysterio decks floating around right now. That none of those decks run Bishop, who would be a 2-1 in those lists, is wild to me. So Bishop as a 2-1 that immediately becomes a 2-4 when you play that Mysterio, that then you're going to play 2 other cards a turn, right? Let's say you play that on turn 4, right? You play Bishop on turn 4 with Mysterio. You have a 2-4, then you're going to play 2 cards the next 2 turns to trigger Thena, right? So 2-4, 2-6, 2-8. You've got a 2-8 that seems like it's really good. And that's its downside. It could easily be bigger in a lot of situations. I think Bishop is super slept on, and if it were released lower series, people would love it. Rocket 2 would be seen as the bounce card it is. It's very easy in bounce to get 2 rocket triggers, especially if you're running cards like Nebula or White Widow. 2 rocket triggers means you have a 1-9 or a 2-9 if you have to play it twice, through the roof stats. And finally, Scorpion is similarly extremely powerful. Every card in your hand would be seen as powerful. If Scorpion were a 2-3, I think it would be in every damn deck. As a 2-2, I think it still belongs in way more decks that just need a 2-drop. What card would see more play if it was released lower series and more people had access to it? And Grandmaster was again the example. The other examples I've got are Legion. Legion is a scam king. I'm often asked, what is Legion for in this deck? What locations? Literally look at the 3 and go, which one benefits me most and which one doesn't benefit the opponent. And you just make it a thing. Legion would be amazing. The other 3 are more recent cards. US Agent is an amazing card. It's genuinely... That it's not in that Cerebro 3 deck sort of boggles my mind, because US Agent is so powerful right now. It's very often a 2-11 or a 2-14 in the Arishem meta. Fantastic card, but people don't have it. It got buffed after leaving Spotlights. People act like that happens all the time, but US Agent's pretty much the only time it's happened, I think, and been relevant to the metagame. So, here we are. Makari is a good card. Everyone thinks it's a bad card. If Makari was a Series 3 card you just got, people would find many more uses for it. Makari is straight up good. People are like, Makari is terrible, Makari is this, Makari is that. Makari is a better card than Fastos. Straight up, right now, Akari is a better card than Fastos. And finally, Namora is like an A-level card. Namora decks are so good, they're so strong, they're so consistent, they're so frustrating for opponents to play against. They take little power and turn it into huge power so quickly. Not only the Safety Blade version, but the M&M version that BBAK sent me are both stellar decks. I thought that wouldn't work anymore in the Arishem meta, and I was wrong. I played it. Namora is great, and no one owns it. Next question is, how many skip weeks are ideal per season? So I think you want, like, assuming you're buying the season pass, you're doing your best to keep up, you're playing smartly, I think you want to skip 2 weeks per season. Generally speaking, most seasons have one card that you're perfectly fine missing. Your War Machine, your Fastos, your, this month, I think it's going to be Hydra Bob, although I think this month will be Hydra Bob. And then you're going to get to skip, you're going to get to save caches on the whatchamacallit week, Cassandra Nova week, because she'll be in Deadpool's Diner. So I think generally speaking, you want to skip 2. In most months, there's one easy skip and one harder skip. I think you want to skip the easy skip, obviously, and just say screw it. And then you want to, assuming you're a season pass buyer, because that's the way I think of the game, again, is a subscription model. And then you want to choose one harder card, one seemingly better card to skip. Cool. And generally speaking, you want to wait, as always, to buy until Friday so that you're buying for weekend missions, but once you have some stats to tell if the damn card is any good. Mandatory burnout. The last 3 questions, for those of you who are new here, are not about Snap. They're just questions. So, Mandatory burnout wonders about the my thoughts about the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona series. All right. I played Shin Megami Tensei 3 and 5, and I don't like either. They're too story light for me, and I don't love job systems when the characters are light. I like pre-made characters and then job systems like sort of around the edges, like Final Fantasy Tactics. But even then, if I started playing that as an adult, I'm not sure I'd like it. I really prefer defined characters. So the Shin Megami Tensei series is not exactly for me. I've heard that the one that fixes this problem that I have with the series is 4, which I own on the 3DS, but it is not one I've played, unfortunately. Now, the Persona series. So, Persona 1 is an atrocious game. Persona 2 is really, really good. I remember very early in the PS2 era, I read up on the story of Innocent Sin, and then I played Eternal Punishment, and the story was phenomenal, even if it was wildly confusing. The rumor system just expanded my imagination. There's a system where you can start rumors, and the rumors start to affect reality if people believe them. Stellar stuff. Impossible to play game, not a very good game, but really, really great ideas. I'm desperate for that game to be remade. Persona 3, I played Persona 3 Portable for a bit when it first came out, but Tartarus sucked. I need to play Persona 4, and I played like 40 hours of Persona 5 before I bounced off it. I was really enjoying the combat and stuff, but the slice of life stuff just sort of felt like a chore at some point. It felt like, I don't love life simmy stuff. I don't like Animal Crossing, any of that stuff. That's just not for me. So I like the series. I really enjoy the combat. I really enjoy the other stuff, even if Push Turn is starting to show its age. But like the Persona series is ultimately not really for me, even if I recognize that it's a great series and for what it does. And like, if I had to pick one game that I think is like the most visually beautiful game, like that it's Persona 5. I think I would really like Persona 4, which has less things to do than Persona 5. It's a much smaller area that you're exploring, but I never fully got into Persona 4. But again, I bet you I would love Persona 4. The procedurally generated dungeons have sort of kept me off it. Eventually I'll get to it. Ryan Wood is curious, cake or pie, and my favorite of each. All right, my favorite of each. My favorite pie is lemon meringue. I mean, outside of pizza pies, right? My favorite pie is lemon meringue, and my favorite cake is cannoli cake. Which do I like better? So I want to say pie, but the answer is honestly cake, right? I think like the top tier pies, like I like lemon meringue pie more than so close. Because like I like lemon meringue pie, I love pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is right up there with lemon meringue pie. But there's not many other pies I super duper adore, right? But there's a million things you can do with cake. Like just the different things you can do with buttercreams and flavors, and I don't know. I think it's cake, but it's close. All right. Corey asks about how I handle, again, I'm an English teacher, it's being confused from students and how I how I handle that mistake. I tend not to stress it. I just ask them to fix it. I teach them the rule. I find re-explaining it. I don't really take off points for that kind of thing. I only take off points if the grammar rule is continually corrected and they still don't fix it. But generally speaking, that's not a huge concern. Most kids just listen after you correct it a few times. I think it's a good rule to learn. I think grammar is fundamentally so much more complicated than we give it credit. If you ever have time and immense patience, read Authority in American Usage by David Foster Wallace. And I know white guys are just David Foster Wallace, whatever. I don't know what you want from me. It's a review of a dictionary that goes into and I don't agree with his conclusions, but I think the discussion is fantastic, where the discussion is fundamentally a look at prescriptivist and descriptivist ideas of the English language. And I think it's fascinating insofar as it relates to race and power. A lot of why we're forced to teach this kind of thing is because people will think you're dumb if you don't know it. People will think you're uneducated if you don't know it. And framing it that way tends to get kids to pay attention to why you're teaching it and get better at it, because no one wants to seem stupid. But, like, it's ultimately utterly irrelevant, isn't it? Like, if you really think about it, it's extraordinarily rare where a situation arises. I think it's impossible, but I'm going to call it extraordinarily rare to cover my bases, where saying using an apostrophe versus not an apostrophe is going to actually affect someone's reading of a text and make them unable to understand what you meant. And if it's not going to do that, then I think it largely matters due to testing and perceived intelligence, which is so much of what grammar is. It's a way to fundamentally privilege education, which was a way to privilege those who had power. So here we are. You're not smarter if you know the difference between it's, and there, and there. It's not. All right, certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. I'd like to say thank you to the following patrons, but first, if you're interested in checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/snapjudgments, please check it out. The $10 tier comes with a weekly exclusive video, along with your name shout-out. That weekly exclusive video, I go over the top 10 decks from the videos each week, and in addition to those top 10 decks, I also take a look at my untapped stats for Marvel Snap. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. And if you're not willing to throw $10 a month down, sign up for the $1 tier. It gets you access to all the tournaments, and I gave last week's $10 video as a sample to anyone on the $1 or higher tier. So please check that out. I'd like to say thank you to the great Abigail Giesland, Mandatory Burnout, Gables, Irregardless, Dave G. Wingfield, Direwolf, Always Kind, LAB, FaThorNewman. Check him out on YouTube. Good Dog Gamer. This is the way, all the way from Scotland. Ink. The Graphite Fan. I am Frostman, you sure are. Jay Neverite. Hello, Jay. Doomer. Prime Brian. Owner, founder of Prime Mind, a wonderful app. Caretixley, the king of questions. Boy Ray, coming all the way from Japan. Pyrofroze, hey Pyro. The Goat Seeker, who still hasn't messaged me with how high he's finishing this season. Denman Falcon, tournament player extraordinaire, who I'll see next Friday at Brookland. Quid Pro Joe, phenomenal name. Doc D, the king of new Marvel Snap card content. Fat Nick. Doku. Ginger Prime, hey Ginge. Philip Ratkovich, Ratko, and Haplo. Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone. Rob Silverman, one of the ROGs. The Bizza. Extros and Skippy G. Winner of Snap Jones League Season 1, Tommy Nyquist. The King of Bros, Bro. Black Dahlia. The Great Kazoo. Jessica Gamble. Ryan Wood, our own Woody. Kev Cihoda. Luna Chris. Archangel 3K. One of our new friends, thank you so much to John Q. Appreciate the support. My former student, Lou Antones. Mod Supreme Models. The one and only Darth Vader. Remy Satala. Brian Kaufman. Tristan H. Martin. Jason B. J.D. McDonaldino, who climbed into the top 100 this season with his own junk brew. The Fuzzy Dunlop. Spectrumix. Woo. Matt H. DJ Mikey Hijinks. No Frickin' Flex. Ocularis. Greg Sterry. Seamus. Spike Jones, aka Jonesy. Two Ties. My favorite person in the Marvel Snap community, Lauren Whatevs. The Pirate King Tuccrr. the homie min. And of course, going to you where the T stands for I forgot to do the question. So we're going to call it free parking and I'll pin it in the video. Cool. So it's free parking. Comment anything you want as long as you give a decent sized comment. Leaving some stuff will count that for the season pass. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for another Snap Take. Peace.